Hello, friends. Welcome back. So, we are on our final chapter of Lions and Liars. And if you recall from the last chapter, Frederick and Ambite were saved by both Eric and the other counselor, Benjamin. And um, Frederick's mom and dad and Mr. Mincy and his buddy Joel all showed up too. So, there's seemingly a happy ending, but we kind of were left hanging to find out what happened with the other boys in the camp and whether or not Frederick was able to make it up to them that he had lied and he still wanted to be their friend. So, chapter 23, 4 months later. Let's see how it really ends. Of course, Frederick had been wrong, and that day when he had said goodbye to Aunt Bite wasn't the day of anything for anybody, wasn't the end of anything for anybody. The counselors at Camp Omagashi went back to college. Benjamin was spending a semester in Australia studying marsupials. Glo was going to graduate in a couple of months, and in her free time, she was training to compete on American Ninja Warrior. Eric had a part time job making smoothies. Frederick imagined that he wore his sunglasses even while he was blending almond milk and protein powder. The state had lots of people cleaning up the camp, and Frederick's dad told him it would probably be an even nicer camp when they were done with the refurbishments. Mr. Mincy had gone online and bought a wetsuit and scuba equipment, and he had dived into the Omagashi like a large seal. He found his motor on the riverbed and attached a chain to it and dragged it back onto the shore. He didn't find the anchor, but he bought a new one at Bass Pro and taught Frederick how to securely tie a line to it and tie that line to the boat. The people at the Jacksonville Zoo were probably the busiest of all. They had lots of scientists and volunteers helping them search for all the missing animals. Most of them were found and recaptured without a problem. According to the news, one macaw and one animal called a kudu, which was similar to a deer, were missing. But people said they might turn up, and Frederick was busy too. With help from Sarah Ann, his mom and dad, Raj and Joel, Frederick had started his own fundraising campaign. 4 months after Hurricane Hernando flooded 100 miles of coast and ruined the Fredericksons' yearly vacation, Frederick found himself at long last on a ship in the Caribbean. Music blared, the sun blazed overhead, and there wasn't a single cloud in the enormous blue sky. Frederick padded across the hot deck on bare feet and stepped up to the bar where Sarah Ann was perched on a stool, sipping Sprite through a straw and chatting at the bartender. Of course, it looks good on college applications, Sarah Ann was saying, gesturing with her hand as she spoke. But that's not why I do it. I do it because I want to be an active and productive member of society. Another strawberry daiquiri, please, Frederick told the bartender. The only downside, Sarah Ann went on, crossing her legs and swinging one sandaled foot, is that now everyone acts like I'm the fundraising girl. Like, that's all I do. And it's not. I don't want to be doing fundraisers for the rest of my life. I want to be like a television host or an advice columnist because I'm really great at fixing problems. Or maybe I should be a lawyer. Or maybe an actress. Frederick took the drink the bartender slid him. He shifted the paper umbrella out of the way and caught the straw in his mouth as he walked back to his lounge chair. Hey, Frederick! Nosebleed called from across the pool. He waved him over to where he and several other boys were having a cannonball contest. Frederick lifted his drink at Nosebleed, indicating that he needed to finish it before he got back in the pool. He sat down in a lounge chair beside Antbite. And Antbite had a beach towel wrapped around himself and was reading the girls' spy book they'd found at camp. His bare feet were propped up, bouncing in time to the steel drums that were set up by the pool. All of the boys from Camp Omagashi were enjoying an all expense paid trip, thanks to some generous donors and fundraisers to make up for the fact that their camp had gotten cut short by the hurricane. In Frederick's opinion, a cruise was better than a transformational disciplinary camp any day. Nothing ever went wrong on cruises. Then the ship's alarm sounded. There were three shattering blasts on the intercom that made Frederick flinch so badly his straw went up his nose. Everyone around the pool stopped talking. The drummers quit playing. They looked around, trying to figure out what was happening. Then Frederick saw a man in a crisp ship uniform, hurrying between the lounge chairs. The man stopped right at the end of Frederick's chair and grabbed a lifeguard's elbow. There's a kid overboard, the man said in a low voice to the lifeguard. He's off the back. Then they both jogged toward the stern of the ship. Antbite swung his feet to the deck and looked at Frederick. Do you think? Frederick scrambled off his lounge chair. Antbite dropped the book. Nosebleed and the cannonballers climbed, dripping out of the pool. They thundered to the back of the ship, scattering shuffleboard players and leaving wet footprints on the deck. When they got to the stern, they grabbed the railing and peered over the dark blue sea stretching to the horizon. Behind the ship, bobbing in the waves, was one of the orange and white lifeboats that was supposed to be hanging from the side of the deck 3. The boat was loaded with what looked like 50 mangoes and a glistening ice sculpture in the shape of a dolphin. Dashiell Blackwood sat at the helm. A red bandana was tied around his head, and he was driving the boat toward the horizon. Frederick stepped between the professor and Joel and leaned against the railing, holding his daiquiri between his hands and watching the boy he had pretended to be sail away. That Dashiell is naughty. Where's he going? The professor said, nodding at the boat. The boys started calling out guesses, but Frederick didn't join them. To tell the truth, he wasn't that curious about where Dashiell Blackwood wound up. Nosebleed cupped his hands around his mouth. Bye, Dash, he yelled. Dash didn't look back. Farther down the railing, there was a scuffle, and Raj yelled, Get off me! And the next thing Frederick knew, Raj's black framed glasses were flying over the railing and dropping into the sea. Specs let out a triumphant whoop, and then he turned and ran up the deck, his feet pounding. Raj tore after him, cursing. Joel and the boys from Camp Omagashi followed, leaving Frederick alone at the railing with a few tourists who were pointing at the escaping boy and muttering in concern. Sunlight sparkled on the water. Frederick finally turned away and followed the others back up toward the pool. There was no way to sugarcoat it. Life could be pretty hard. A lion might horrifically eat you at any moment, even if you were in North America, where lions were not supposed to be. And hurricanes came right for you, even if you canceled your vacations just to avoid them. And people had all kinds of problems, and sometimes those problems couldn't be fixed. When Frederick had gotten back home, he had found that even after his big adventure, he hadn't transformed into that guy who gets all the laughs in class and walked through the school like he owned the place. He still kind of felt like a flea sometimes, and Devin Goodyear was still a lion. So yes, life could be hard. But Frederick had a theory that if Hey, Frederick! Frederick looked up. Antbite was ahead of him. He stopped and was looking back, waiting. He gestured with a hand, beckoning Frederick. Are you coming or not? Yeah, Frederick jogged to catch up. Anyway, Frederick had a theory that no matter how hard life was among all the hungry animals, if you could find some people who would help you survive and who you could help in return, and if you took some time off every now and then to get away from your problems, then it could actually be pretty great. And hey, at least it wasn't boring. Frederick fell into a step beside Antbite. He plucked the plastic saber out of his drink and dragged a frosty cherry off it with his teeth. And here's an author's note. In case you were curious, the book the professor reads at the breakfast is Lord of the Flies by William Golding. The spy book Antbite has at the end is I'd Tell You I Love You, but Then I'd Have to Kill You by Ally Carter. So in case you want to look into those books, um, those are the titles that he was thinking she was thinking when she wrote this book. And there's the author, Kate. So thank you for reading with me. And thank you for following along the book. I really enjoyed this adventure story. And I'm glad that Frederick learned um, some new things in life, things that will carry him for a long time.